So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and today I want to take a quick look at the new Tenno spear gun, the Scourge. Now you can pick up the blueprint for the Scourge from the Tenno lab in your dojo, and no one has had the time to research it yet, so I don't know what the build requirements are, but the research requirements are pretty expensive. You're going to need a lot of oxium. The Scourge is a status-based spear gun that comes with two different fire modes. The primary mode does 60 raw corrosive damage with 30% status chance and only 2% crit chance with a 1.5 times multiplier. It has really good accuracy even with heavy caliber, fire rate of 2.67, and it has 2.5 second reload. The secondary fire will throw the spear forward, which adds a significant amount of IPS damage, so if you hit an enemy with it, you will do 700 extra physical damage. And once the spear is firmly embedded in the ground or an enemy or whatever it hits, it will create a field that will put small bullet attractors on nearby enemies' heads. The field has a decent size, it stretches a little bit above the enemy's head and their shoulders, and it also covers the majority of their torso. And just like with the other two spears, once you throw it, you can either wait a couple of seconds and it will magically reappear in your hands, or you can just run over the spear and pick it back up. Now, the bullet attractor effect does not guarantee you headshots because it will sort of just guide the bullet towards the center. So if you hit them in the torso, there's a good chance you will hit them in the upper part of the torso or the neck. And if you shoot around their shoulder area, there is a pretty good chance the bullet will be attracted to the shoulder, especially if the enemy has a big shoulder pad. This means that the bullet attractor effect is, in my opinion, meh at best, because you have to aim really close to the enemy's head, and while you're doing that, you might as well just readjust your aim a little bit and hit them in the head. It does help a little bit, so if you're running a secondary that relies on headshots or gets benefits from headshots, something like the new Nell or even dual tox assist, it's definitely better to throw the spear down and get a little bit of aim assist than just shoot at the enemy without it. The build I ended up with is a 3 Forma build, where I've added 2 Vs and a D, and I'm running Serration for more damage, Split Chamber for some multi-shot, then Heavy Caliber, which is actually a really good choice for the Scourge because it doesn't ruin the accuracy of the primary fire as much as it does on the other two spear guns, and it doesn't really matter for the secondary fire either because you're mostly going to use it to put bullet attractors on the enemy's heads, so throwing it a little bit to the left or to the right is not a big deal. Then I've added Fast Hands because the 2.5 second reload time started to get on my tits really fast and I needed to cut it down a little bit, and this made it much better. And finally I went with a triple combo setup with Primed Cryo rounds and Malignant Force for viral damage and Stormbringer with Thermite rounds for radiation damage. And this, by the way, is a terrible setup for the infested, so if you want to fight them, either remove Stormbringer so you have a little bit of heat damage for the flesh, or just go with corrosive and gas. Now, this is a status-based weapon, so it's only effective after a couple of shots. The first few shots will do very little damage, but I'm still not impressed with the amount of damage the primary fire does. It's not terrible by any means, it will take you through the entire star chart, and I would probably take it into like sortie 1 or 2 probably. And it also has a little bit of splash on the primary fire, so it's pretty good at proccing status versus groups of enemies. But I'm just not impressed, and it may be because I've already maxed out the other two spears, and the Ferox is just a monster when compared to this. I mean, look at the damage here. And yes, it is single target damage, whereas the Scourge does a little bit of AoE thanks to the splash, but the damage difference is just staggering. I wonder if this weapon was made with Harrow in mind, because if you get the full crit buff on Harrow, yeah, it hurts just a little bit. But if that is the case, that's pretty terrible, because what if you don't like playing Harrow? Now, in my Chains of Harrow update overview, I said that this weapon straight up wins the Best Spear Gun in the Game award because it's using a standard fire mechanic. You don't need to charge the primary fire. But as I've played with it more and more, the combination of not having to charge the primary fire and also it doing a little bit of splash damage, so you only really have to shoot it sort of in the vague direction of the enemies, makes it far less fun than the other spear guns, more specifically the Ferox. You don't have to aim with this too much, you just sort of vaguely wave it in the direction of the enemy, because if you miss, most of the time the splash will hit the enemy anyway, and even if you miss completely, you can just fire off another shot because you don't have to charge it. So turns out the one thing that I thought was sort of a downside about the Ferox was the thing that actually made it more fun. And I know there will be people who think this is an incredibly dumb reason to dislike the weapon, and you are not wrong because it is very much a personal preference. I just prefer the way the Ferox plays instead. Now, while the gameplay of the Scourge is very much a downside for me, I just do not enjoy it as much as I thought I would, it may be a big upside for other people because they do not enjoy the way the Ferox plays and they would rather have a spear gun that just fires up shot after shot with a little bit of splash so they don't have to be as accurate with it. And if that's the case for you, go for it, because this may be the spear gun you were looking for. It's not a bad gun by any means, it is pretty damn decent. It's just that I personally prefer the Ferox. And that's pretty much it for the video, so I hope you've enjoyed it. I thank you very much for watching as always, guys, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.